When we talk about Greece, characteristic whitewashed houses appear in our minds. Each curve of the narrow, winding alleys, interrupted by stairs, provides us with new wonders. The flat roof of each house forms the terrace of the one above, offering a fascinating view of the incredibly blue surface of the Aegean Sea. The blue screens evoke the color of the cloudless sky. The long line of arched square houses is broken only by a blue-domed church or a thatched windmill. Some of the terraces are restaurants covered by arbors from where we can admire a beautiful sunset while sipping metaxa. The windows of the houses are alive with red geraniums. We can listen to bouzouki in cafes, smell the irresistible gyros in the windows of the buffets, and on the sea below ships float towards their unknown destinations. The sun shines, the salty flavor of the sea can be smelled, seagulls squawk. How many postcards, magazines, calendars, or films have transmitted this image so that we can recall the pictures of Greece almost effortlessly? These pictures, however, are not necessarily characteristic of Greece, nor of the majority of the islands. This is a unique view of Santorini that offers the essence of Hellas. Those who have not yet visited this place have not seen Greece. From an aeroplane, the altogether 1,425 islands of the Cyclades, Sporades, and Dodecanese look like shiny precious stones laid on velvet. The majority of the islands are similar to each other, yet they have different features. There are some which impress with rich, lush, green flora, some with the amazing sight of barren rocks, some which are memorable due to their past, their real history, or the mysterious legends hidden in obscurity. There are islands that tourists visit because of their classical buildings, monuments, and excavations, and some that attract visitors with busy, lively, exotic towns and friendly, colorful harbors. A lot of people look for beaches, water sports, and the pleasures of an active holiday, while others seek calm and peaceful rest. Some are lured by gastronomy, some by the beauties of nature. It's admirable that Greece can protect its traditions, uniqueness, and the image of its settlements even in the crunch of 21st century treadmill-like tourism. Such individuality is possessed by the island of Santorini, or Fira. Because of its relative nearness to Crete, the Big Island, it is a fashionable destination for one-day cruises. These are perfectly suitable for arousing the desire in tourists to spend more time here, so the immediate consequence would be to spend the next 1 or 2 week summer holiday there. The only 73 square kilometer island with 6,000 inhabitants is situated in the Aegean Sea, 120 kilometers north of Crete. As the excavations in Akrotiri have proven, the two islands had strong relations with each other, even in Minoan culture. The capital city of the island was built on the rising edge of the cliffs of Caldera. The appearance of the 18th century Roman Catholic Church, the Immaculate Conception, built by Venetians, interestingly mingles with the architectural motifs of Greek Orthodox and European churches. The decorated interior provides interested visitors with several attractions. Crystal chandeliers, carved altars, and beautiful frescoes make it majestic. Santorini was called Strongyle, round, and Calliste, beautiful, in ancient times. Today, only the latter exists. The once round island shriveled to a crescent shape due to a volcanic eruption in Minoan times. Where today the sea shines in the bay of the crescent, an active volcano used to stand, frequently spitting lava and ashes. In the 15th century BC, this active monument reached its high point, and the volcano exploded. At that time, the mountain disappeared and the biggest part of the island sank, creating the current form of Santorini. Scala is the harbor of the capital city, stretching 300 meters into the sea. Those who do not want to walk up the 587 stairs can choose to ride a donkey or to take the slightly more expensive cable railway. The latter was built at the end of the 80s by the donation of an elderly couple who live abroad, and has become the pride of Fira. Its structure is the same as cable railways operating in the Austrian Alps. Pleasure boats leaving from the harbor of Scala take tourists mostly to southern and southeastern islands, as well as the smaller and lesser known, therefore intact islands of the Cyclades. Castle rising above the harbor, based on its form, could even be a Moroccan or Saharan fortress. In this way, it is largely different from the other buildings of the city. In 1956, an earthquake seriously damaged the island. All the houses of Fira were built after this, successfully preserving their original form. The little streets winding along the edge of the crater are framed by small, snow-white, flat-roof or barrel-vault houses. Today, some tradition-breaking, pastel-colored buildings also appear in some places. The majority of the terraces are framed by wooden lattice fences and decorated with sun umbrellas and flowers. The terraces of taverns, confectionaries, and restaurants offer an ever-fascinating view of the water, playing in different shades of blue and tiny little boats that seem like toys. The medieval capital city of the island was Gyros, built on a steep python above Fira and was later destroyed by an earthquake. Below the 14th century Venetian ruins, the remains of a forsaken monastery can be seen. Fira, established in 1810, has merged with the two neighboring villages, Firostefani and Imirovigli. This long-stretching settlement is the result of the amazingly fast development of the last 20 years. The tourist center of the island has been created here. Plenty of shops, banks, hotels, post offices, hospitals, and entertainment facilities have been built on the steep side of the caldera. Because of the dangers of earthquake, every house has to be built on a reinforced concrete base, and none of them can be higher than 3 floors. The best view from Fira opens onto 2 little islands, Paleo Kameni and Neo Kamari, in the middle of the caldera, which often emits smoke even today. The Archaeological Museum of the capital has gained its fame by exhibiting archaic vases and clay sculptures discovered during excavation of the Doric Thera. Besides fossils of Minos, we can see idol sculptures from early Cycladic times and Hellenistic embossments. The excavated relics of Akrotiri that did not remain on the spot are kept by the National Archaeological Museum in Athens. The building with the longest history of the city center, Megaron Gizi, is in the old district of Kato Fira. The ethnographic exhibition, which describes the history of the island in pictures, photos, traditional folk clothes, and articles for personal use, has been set up here. The carpet weaving manufacture established by Queen Frederica used to operate here. The most beautiful pieces made here can still be admired. The name Imirovigli means day guard. Little towers operating with fire signals once guarded the island in case of pirate attacks. The most well-known building of the settlement, the Blessed Virgin Mary Temple of Malta, was named after an icon from Malta. The most interesting factor is, however, the intricately designed environment. The mixture of artistically decorated snow-white houses, terraces, and stairs outshine even Fira. We can find here several little craft workshops, manufacturers, and art galleries, as if the cultural life of the island had centralized in this place. The bohemian-like little cafes and pubs enhance this atmosphere. A certain part of luxurious hotels are under foreign authority, as well as many of the luxurious apartments. One site of Fira is the oldest monastery of the island, Aegean Nikolaos, that was built in 1651. The harbour of Athinios can be approached by way of a steep serpentine. Ships that take tourists to the volcano near Kamari Island leave from here. An excursion like this will certainly be one of the highlights of a holiday on Santorini. The favorite pet of the harbor is, interestingly, not a cat or a dog, but the pony of the owner of one of the taverns, going from terrace to terrace, begging for some petting and delicious tidbits from tourists. Sailors are the real masters of their profession. Even the expression artist is not an exaggeration. The captain sitting on the high chair looks like a playboy sitting on a bar chair listening to music. He moves the wheel a little occasionally. This time he acts as if he had surfaced from the waves onto the ship after the rhythm of the music, and the huge body of the ship obeys him, so travelers with extremely sensitive stomachs do not have even the faintest hint of being seasick despite the swell. On board, it's worth protecting ourselves against sunstroke with caps or hats. It'll be increasingly relevant on the island of Kamari that has almost no shade at all. It's also vitally important to take water along when going there. The effects of the geological cataclysm from the 15th century BC may still be felt today. The eruption of the volcano and the collapse of the crater were accompanied by semi-darkness, tsunamis, and other frightening phenomena due to volcanic ash in the entire area of the Mediterranean Sea. Although there are some still active volcanoes in Europe, for instance Vesuvius, Stromboli, and Etna, their eruptions cannot approximate the catastrophe sinking in the shadows of the past. The most serious and best documented volcanic eruption was produced by the Indonesian Krakatoa in 1898. The area of the caldera, with its area of 10 by 6 kilometers, created after the eruption of the volcano on Santorini, is nearly threefold that of Krakatoa. This can give an idea about the severity of the catastrophe. The sea was on fire between Thera and Thracia for 4 days, wrote an ancient author in the time when a 2-kilometer-long blazing lava island, Pelea Kameni, or Old Stone, emerged from the flaming sea. In 1573, the southeastern corner of the island sank, and more volcanic peaks appeared in the middle of the caldera at the same time. Later, they together formed the island of Neo Kameni, or New Stone. Volcanic activity might have ceased for centuries, when finally in 1867 and 1926 a large amount of lava and ashes got into the surface again. The clouds of ashes covered the Aegean Sea up to Asia Minor. The last eruption frightened islanders in 1950. If we visit the island of Neo Kameni by boat, we see that the enormous power of nature can still thrill us. The stones lying at the bottom of the crater are hot from the energy of the seeping volcano. Everyone takes a holy stone or other minerals from here. These are more authentic than their painted and scripted replicas found in souvenir shops. In the 15-meter deep main crater, we can see sulfur crystals distilled from sulfur gases, giving the sea its beautifully green color. Its temperature can sometimes reach 40 degrees Celsius, attributable to the still active volcano that is under continuous scrutiny. The components of air and seawater, its temperature, magnetic and tectonic changes are constantly being measured. Pleasure boats usually visit the third island of Caldera, the silent Thracia, too. This island was separated from Santorini in the 3rd century BC. In the harbor, shell sellers offer their goods to the passengers of pleasure boats. After the tiring crater tour, travelers can relax here. We can also swim on the long, narrow, graveled beach running along the foot of the mountain. Before going on, we can try iced coffee and soft drinks in the buffets along the coast and the offerings of fish restaurants caught fresh in the bay. Those who are not tired can go up to the little settlement of Manolis, facing Caldera, by climbing 150 steep stairs where there are some taverns and rooms to let. Fortunately, the tiring journey can be taken on donkeyback too. From the boat, we can look back and even take pictures of the harbors of Thracia and Manolis, which seem even higher from this perspective. Soon, we can take a glimpse of the harbor of Athinios that is framed by the steep rock walls. We need less than half an hour to feel solid earth under our feet again. In the continuation of the runway of the airport, we can find the beach of Kamari, covered by black volcanic sand. The settlement was built at the foot of Mesavono, the oldest mountain of the Aegean Sea, which was the harbor of Fira in ancient times. This was destroyed by volcanic eruption, while another flattened it again in the last century. The village also had to be rebuilt from the ruins of the earthquake in 1956. Kamari has become nearly the most populous and highly developed holiday resort of the island. Tourists love it mainly for its sandy beaches with clear water and the wide choice of water sports and activities. The intimate promenade is still attractive, framed by hotels of different categories and numerous entertainment and hospitality facilities. We can find here everything that is important from the point of tourism. A wide selection of stores, souvenir shops, cafes and pubs, some travel agents, activity centers, shipping and airlines, currency exchange offices, and car rentals are in operation. All hotels have swimming pools, some of them more than one. The furnishings of the rooms is both intimate and practical. The equipment and services of the hotels meet all expectations. At most travel agencies, local travel guides are happy to help the travelers. At most travel agencies, local travel guides are happy to help the travelers. Of course, as the evening approaches, the traffic of the promenade becomes lively. Hungry tourists who long for entertainment swarm out of their hotels to enjoy the Greek cuisine and the unmistakable atmosphere, maybe on the terrace of a different restaurant every evening. The restaurants are in serious competition with each other regarding not only the choice of meals and the prices, but also the originality and atmosphere of the place. The promenade is full of different sellers, street musicians, and portrait drawers. The restaurant owners stand in front of their businesses to attract guests, beckoning loudly. The name of Zorba the Greek can be seen on signs, together with the displays of fish, and the collection of original articles for personal use. The typical local vegetables, or the spit-roasted meat in the oven. Pirgos was built at the foot of the highest mountain of the island and got its name after its 42 churches, a lot even by Greek standards. Although it had at least as many windmills, some of which were built in elaborately designed holiday homes, while most of them were left to perish. This was the fate of the once famous castle and wall of the city, which were built to protect the inhabitants from pirate attacks. In the remaining parts of the city wall, little white houses are sunk. Behind the fences, bell towers rise. The salty sea air and the winter rains corrode the walls of the houses, which are repainted every Easter. In spite of its Greek style, the old noble castle stands out from the simple village surroundings. With its cleanliness, quietness, with the scent of flowers, the entire city breathes an idyllic calmness. Emporio is the biggest settlement of the southern part of the island, which was named after the plains surrounding it. It's a cycladic settlement with a characteristic atmosphere. It's not rare here yet that people travel on donkeys instead of cars. It's more environmentally friendly and cheaper, since the animal only eats a few handfuls of weeds per 100 kilometers, and is no more stubborn than some modern vehicles. The image of the scenic little town is not different at all from the view of Pirgos or Megalokori. Even in peak season, quietness and tranquility are not considered unusual here. Pirissa is a quieter resort town, situated opposite Kamari, also with a beach covered by black sand. It's especially popular with families. The biggest church of the island, the St. Irene Chapel, can be found here. Santorini is a distorted form of this name. The church is a famous procession place where local people go on pilgrimages on holidays. And in the summer peak season, tourists make their pilgrimages to the beaches. They visit the Greek islands for the delights of sea and sunshine, easily accessible by a 2 or 3 hour flight from almost any European city. What increases the popularity of Pirissa is the camping site in the village. It's true that the shops are not as sumptuous as on Kamari, and there are fewer activities, but the entire island is small, with good transport. Those who stay on Pirissa can reach Kamari in 10 minutes and Fira in half an hour by bus or rental car. Akrotiri is considered to be perhaps one of the most significant excavation sites in the world. It was the achievement of not an archaeologist, but a French geologist, a certain Ferdinand Fouquet, that a few pieces of tiles caught his attention and led to the excavation of the 3,000-year-old city that remained in a surprisingly undamaged condition. This happened 50 years before the excavations of the remains of the Palace of Knossos on Crete by Arthur Evans, so nobody had any idea of the Minoan culture yet. The famous Greek archaeologist Spiridon Marinatos linked the devastation of Minoan Crete to the eruption of the volcano Santorini in 1939. This scientific announcement would have entailed the reopening of the excavations of Akrotiri, but World War II intervened to such an extent that work was started again only in 1967, when it was realized in just a few days that they had found an entire Bronze Age city. Artifacts from under the layer of volcanic ash justified the ideas of Marinatos about the Minoan Empire, which functioned with its center on Crete. All houses were supplied with piped water, its residents were familiar with the loom and the mill, its articles for personal use were made of richly ornamented copper and brass, and its houses were decorated with artful frescoes. Near the excavations of Akrotiri, to the north, we can find the Red Beach. We can reach the beach after some mountain climbing, passing by the nicely renovated Agios Nikolaios, named after the patron saint of seamen. This beach has the most scenic location of the island, so for many, it's well worth a little climbing. There are people who do not even come here for swimming, just to photograph or film this spectacular place. The Red Beach is also popular with swimmers because it offers a delightful sight as an alternative to the monotony of the yellow or black sand that can be seen elsewhere on Santorini. The Aegean Sea is characterized by extremely high salt content. The highest values of it were measured exactly around Crete and Santorini. One reason for this is that almost no sizable freshwater rivers run into the sea. The other reason is that the cold water flowing into the Atlantic Ocean to the Mediterranean Sea is blocked by the island of Crete. Because of the excessive warming, evaporation is significant, but there is little rain, which leads to the concentration of salt content. Scientists and laymen still argue today about whether the wonderful continent of Atlantis, first described by Plato, really existed or not. Galanopoulos, a Greek geologist professor, went so far as to call Minoan Crete and Santorini Atlantis. The continent-sized, wealthy island should probably be looked for in the Atlantic Ocean, around the Canary and the Azores Islands. It is, however, true that the Minoan Empire shows a lot of similarities with the ideal state of Plato, and the catastrophe that destroyed Atlantis is very similar to the eruption and the explosion of the Santorini volcano, followed by earth and sea quakes and tidal waves. The stake of the argument is enormous. If Atlantis existed, then the people of the Stone Age are not descendants of the Neanderthals, but the survivors of a civilization that had previously existed and had been destroyed. The proofs of this would shake the basis of our ideas about the development of the human race and would fill the gap that spans primitive man and the more developed civilizations of antiquity. Ios lies 50 kilometers from Santorini and 170 kilometers from Pirgos. Its area comprises 108 square kilometers, but it has only 1,500 inhabitants. In the summer, the number of people bustling here is many times the population of the island, among them countless backpackers. On the Greek islands in general, camping is not a fashion. However, young people who have less money, some of them out of necessity, others out of pleasure, seek this kind of vacation. The center of the island is the harbor, and the capital city, which is only a quarter of an hour away, even on foot. An increasing number of smaller and larger private yachts call at port at the harbor. This way of spending the vacation time is mostly popular with Western Europeans. This way, vacationers may get to know as many as a dozen islands within 2 or 3 weeks. It's possible to rent yachts in the bigger ports with or without staff, of course. On the islands of Santorini and Ios, a wide range of necessary services are at the disposal of the seaman. Ialos lies in the middle of the western coastal area of the island in a horseshoe-shaped protected bay. Incoming ships and ferries are greeted by the snow-white chapel and its graceful bell tower. In the capital city, bearing the same name as the island, we can find all elements of the Cycladic atmosphere, perhaps not as concentrated as in the cities of Santorini. There are also Venetian castle ruins, narrow, arched streets, snow-white houses, a dozen windmills, and even more chapels. The terraces of taverns and restaurants almost melt together in the evenings, and the whole city becomes a single enormous catering facility. But in the early spring and autumn, an idyllic tranquility greets the island, which shows its nicer face around this time. On the popular beaches of the island, jet skiing, surfing, water skiing, parachuting, banana, and several other water sports are all available. But the water, clear to great depths, is a favorite among divers also. The cultural historical site of Ios lies far away from the harbor and the busy beaches. cannot be decided whether it is legend or reality that Homer, on his way to Athens, stopped on Ios. Allegedly, the blind poet died suddenly and was buried here. In the northeast corner of the island, near Plakatos, on a cliff facing the sea, there's a monument built on the site of the former grave, after the grave itself was lost to the sea due to a landslide, they say. The place is not easy to find, but it's worth going there for a quiet, solitary meditation. For instance, we can think about the question whether Homer was a legend, not a real person, as some people contend. But then, who wrote the Iliad and the Odyssey? The harbor is decorated by the bust of Homer, of course. The poet amalgamated the legends into a unified art, legends living in different forms that commemorated the significant events of the age of Mycenae and its outstanding personalities. Between the two islands, huge, well-equipped luxury ferries transport passengers. The site of Ea, according to many people, surpasses even that of the capital city, Fira. The colorful cavalcade of intimate little houses is the embodiment of the Greek dream. There's almost no travel agency which does not have photos of this place to attract visitors to Hellas. The characteristic architecture of Santorini was defined by the geographic conditions. Here it was possible to make a virtue out of necessity. The island lacked water, wood, and food. The poor families made full use of the easily workable pumice stone rocks and deepened cave flats into the steep sides of the caldera. In the 19th century, nearly 1/2 of the population lived in cave flats. The caves had a lot of headroom. The rooms were separated by walls. They got fresh air and light through the door. In the front, there was the living room. In the back, which did not get as much light, the bedroom. The kitchen was in the living room. The bathroom on the terrace next to the cistern. In the Middle Ages, the cave also protected from pirate attacks. Later, wealthier people supplemented these caves with forebuildings. Building material was supplied by the volcanic stone dug from the cave. The barrel vault, due to lack of wood, was made of stone. The terraces are separated by low, plastered stone rails and little wooden gates. The roads are substituted or supplemented by winding stairs. The use of white, blue, and recently pastel colors is as characteristic as the decorations used. The style itself is called either Aegean or Cycladic. In spite of its simplicity, it could not be established on the other Greek islands. By local standards, Ea is a big city, so, of course, it has its own harbor. It has, just like the other Greek harbors, an abundance of restaurants. Let's see how these are different from each other. The most known taverns are simple little pubs with rustic furniture. The estiatorios are little restaurants offering a wider range of meals. The psistarias are particularly grill restaurants, specializing in barbecues and spit-roasted meals. The restaurants offering mostly fish and fruit of the sea are called psaro taverns. Of course, it's the latter that are widespread in the harbors. It's certain that the ingredients are always fresh and they do not lack the necessary cooking expertise. Fish, crabs, and clams are often grilled here, perhaps in olive oil, lemon always goes with them, and the golden Greek wine slides down the throat smoothly with these. The octopodi, or octopus, the calamari, the garides, or crab, the styrida, or mussels, are also popular. The tastiest kind of fish are barbuna, or red barb, and glossa, which is sole. Salmon is a delicacy, together with swordfish, which can grow to several meters in size. The sword of this fish often decorates the walls of fish restaurants. The harbor still operates primarily as a fishing harbor, but it does not have a fish market. It seems all of the prey ends up in the kitchens of local restaurants. The harbor can be approached by car by way of a winding serpentine. But by all means, it's more stylish on donkey back. Ia was built on the end of the road following the caldera. Up until World War II, it was the economic and administrative center of the island. It was devastated by an earthquake in 1956. After that, it displayed a very sad image for a long time. What we see today was built up in the past 20 years, also taking the demands of the international tourism into consideration. In the 20th century, we got used to the fact that the high allotment prices of big cities forced contractors to design high-rise, tightly built houses with little floor space. In the Middle Ages, other reasons played a role, obviously, but the houses of the old towns are huddled up against each other very closely, as if they were cold or afraid to stand alone. At that time, for the purposes of defense, they often built houses on hills and cliffs. This is how fancifully winding little roads were created, climbing up the hillsides and descending down to valleys, quite suddenly leading into little squares and passageways. This is what results in the fact that older cities are much more difficult to get around than the quadratic modern cities with avenues, so they appear larger than they actually are. Ia is not very big. However, if we would like to get to know it well, we can roam about it for days. It's nice to take delight in small details, the pavement of terraces, the knockers on the doors, the flower pots reminiscent of old Greek amphoras, the wrought iron handrails and lamps. Beautifully carved photo albums or calendars make nice souvenirs or gifts. Out of the many churches of Ia, the Agios Sasson and the Temple of the Virgin Mary are worth mentioning. The Greek Orthodox churches were built in the Middle Ages as a demonstration against the still spreading Catholicism. Actually, this national and religious opposition is the reason for the unbelievably high number of Orthodox churches which are still visible on Santorini. For instance, the nearby island of Anafi is famous for having almost as many churches and chapels as residents. As in every place which is visited by masses of tourists, on Santorini, locals also try to dump a lot of cheap, low-value souvenirs on the unsuspecting visitor. But those who devote some time can buy really original ornamental pieces with real artistic value in the shops of Ia. The prices are not always low, but one single unique painting, vase, or sculpture can decorate an entire room. As Robert Merle wrote, and as many of us have realized by ourselves, reality often surpasses the imagination. This can be felt on Santorini and especially in the city of Ia. 1 hour before sunset, like swallows on the wire, the tourists gather, mostly equipped with cameras or camcorders, to stop time and capture what cannot be recorded. But the image which we take with us within our hearts is more lasting. Behind the bulky thatched windmill, the sun shines like molten gold. Its circle is still high, but the shadows are stretching and the incredible blue of the sky takes on a purple cast. Then the snow-white houses start to get darker. Here and there, a lamp is lit. Or on the terrace of one of the houses, some night lights start to flicker. The sun reaches the end of its journey, and it sinks into the sea exhausted. Devotional silence greets this moment. Then slowly nightlife starts. The streets are filled with people, and the terraces of taverns are also occupied. Then, next to a glass of ouzo or retsina, resolutions are made. Next year, here, again.